Well, we are pleased to welcome the head coach of the Chicago Bears, Matt Eberflus, onto the Hoge Jahns podcast for the first time. Welcome.
Hey, I'm happy to be here, guys. I really am, and thanks for having me.
Hope it's the first of at least a few times here. Excited to have you here, and
you've signed up for like every year now. For this.
I saw it in my contract.
Yes.
It said I was on the podcast at least 3 or 4 times a year. So
wow,
I'm glad they snuck that in.
Yeah, you got to sneak that in. Okay, so your first owners meetings. How's it been? You just got out of a big vote that's changing rules and overtime. I mean, what's it been like?
It's really nice. I mean, obviously the facility, the Breakers, is outstanding. The NFL puts on a first class operation here, and got a chance to have my family down here, so it's been nice. And you get to see all your friends. Your friends that you work with. I've been almost 15 years in the league, so. Brian Dable is one of my friends, and it's got a chance to see him, Nick Sirianni, Frank, and you get a chance to catch up, and it was nice. It's been nice.
I think you stood next to Brian in the team picture. Did you not? Or was that him behind you?
I did.
I feel like he should be in front.
Yes,
a little bit.
I stood next to him and Mike T. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, is there an order that you get? Like, do they put you in an order in that photo? We see it every year. Or was it just line up however you want?
Yeah, I think there should be an order.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't think there was.
It used to be like short guys in front.
Well, I think Sean McVay was in front.
He was in front,
but
yes.
He probably wanted to be there,
Sunglasses.
Well, he should be.
Yeah,
right? he won it. So
he did get the win this year. Hey, speaking of another head coach in the league, I got a chance to talk to Lovie Smith yesterday a little bit, and because I was curious, you guys never actually coached together,
right?
But I wanted to know the kind of the genesis of when you guys first started talking about this defense that you guys obviously believe in. And he mentioned about how it was back when he was the Rams defense coordinator, and you were down the highway over with Missouri. What was that draw, I guess, for you to seek out? Were you the one that initiated that and to seek out Lovie Smith and say, hey, let's learn more about this defense?
Yeah, so the year, and again, I could be off by a couple of years, but it was the year that Tampa Bay went to the Super Bowl, and they won and they dominated in the Super Bowl. And Lovie was already at the Rams, and I was at Mizzou. I was a defensive coordinator at Mizzou, and I'd been there for a couple of years. We had used the 4-4 defense that was popularized by the Washington Huskies of the 1990 that won the national championship with Don James. And we had been running that for a few years. And we had since switched over to the Big 12, going to Missouri from Toledo. And Coach Pinkel asked me, he said, hey, think about just looking at the structure of defense and, maybe we need to adjust. And at the time, Oklahoma and Kansas City, Oklahoma with the Stoops brothers, and then Kansas State, and I forget who the coordinator was there, but they were both all running 4-3 schemes. Okay. So I was watching the Super Bowl and looking at it, and I said, Coach, I want to investigate this more in this offseason to see where we're going to go. So I ended up talking to Lovie. I think one of his sons was checking out schools and colleges at the time. He came over. I talked to him. I said, hey, would you mind us coming over there and talking to you about your defense? And so we went over there and visited with him. And then we went to Indianapolis. That's where Coach Dungy was. And then over the year, and then we ended up adopting the defense. We put it in, and we put our own style on it, of course. But and then over the years, we came up and visited with Chicago when he was there in the early 2000s. So, that's where we first met.
How much did he come up in your conversations with the former Bears players with text message or phone calls? Because I'm sure you talked to some of those guys, Brian Urlachers, the Charles Tillmans. What did they tell you about that era of Bears football with Lovie Smith and Rod Marinelli and what you could bring to it?
Yeah, it's really the same in terms of just hearing the names like you said. Rod Marinelli and Lovie Smith and all the guys that are in that generation of Chicago Bears football, and it's a great memory for them because they dominated. They had dominating performances, and they were able to win a lot of games. And go to the Super Bowl and. It was an exciting time for them, and they're looking forward to the Chicago Bears getting back to that, and they want to be a part of it.
Is that like a brand of football? Not so much like an identity, but like who the Bears are supposed to be. Like, how much did you maybe seek out that information for what you want to build here? Like who they're supposed to be, that brand of football that the Bears are known for.
Yeah, it's a style. It really is a style, and you say, well, what does that mean? You can see it. and you can feel it. And when you look at it, you say, okay, that's what we're talking about right there. And you should be able to see that from 10,000 feet. And it's more about, what we're doing is important, but how we do it. So the HITS principle was genesis off of that. And that's the way I built it for the linebackers initially when I was with Coach Marinelli back in Dallas. And I brought it to the Indianapolis Colts, and now we're taking it on here to the Chicago Bears. But it's a how, and it's a way to measure it, and that style has always been there with the Tampa Bay and Chicago and, the long history. But it was a way for us to measure it and give it to the players. And I think it really just did it out of the fact that the players are so smart now, and they want to have proof of, hey, why are we doing this? Because it wins. But what do you actually want me to do? And it was a way for us to measure it, and they could do it. Okay, this is what you want, Coach, and this is what you don't want. And it was easy for them, and it was an easy way for us to hold them accountable.
When you say that you could feel it, I guess as somebody who's sitting up in the press box for the games, the way I think of that is, like, the Bears have had defenses in the past where, like, you didn't want to miss a snap when they were on the field because you knew a takeaway could happen.
Swarming.
Like either Charles Tillman would knock the ball out, or somebody would get an interception, or somebody would sack, get a strip sack. Like, you just could tell on any play. How does that materialize when you have a defense like that? Because that's what you're going to be preaching here. Take the ball away, rally to the football. Something Lovey was talking about yesterday. Like, why would I do a one-on-one battle when I could bring 10 of my friends, right?
Right.
When you have that possibility of creating a takeaway on any snap, how does that affect your coaching?
No, it does affect your coaching because everybody's punching and ripping at the ball every single play. And we don't know what play it's going to be, but we're going to get 2 to 3 takeaways a game. And when you see it that way, you have to be on point. You got to be hustling. You got to be ready. You got to be alert, and you got to be humming to the ball. And because you never know when it's going to happen. When's going to be your scoop and score moment? When's going to be your punch out moment? When's going to be your interception moment? And then now we have instantaneous reactions to now score. Take it up to numbers and score, and everybody gets a block, and that has to be coached, and that has to be repped by the players. So it's exciting to watch every single play, and it's like you said, we're swarming to the ball. We have a thing called team defensive tackle, which is 7+ players to the ball on any intermediate pass or run play. So anything that's under 15 yards, we want 7 guys to the football.
How much of this is combining talent with attitude? I guess given your experience, how much does that attitude enhance the talent that you have, or make a good player great with the certain attitude that's needed by the team?
Yeah, so if you look at the system over the years, it'll take a player that's a pretty good player. Let's just call him a B player. It'll make him an A- player. It'll take a C+ player and make him a B+ player. I mean, just because of the effort and the attitude in which they play. And then when you add the Peppers and Urlachers and the guys that are Hall of Fame type players, man, then the defense just rises up from there, because those are A+ players to begin with, and man, now they're the Hall of Fame type players, and that's what you want.
So I liked hearing along those lines what you said today, the M&M motor and mean today when you were talking to us about that earlier this morning. With Lucas Patrick, because it's been some of the talk about how he plays, right? What kind of insight did Luke Getsy give you, like when his name first came up, and what kind of player you might be getting?
Yeah, he first talked about the man, and he talked about the character, the high character, and then he talked about leadership, and then how he rallied the offensive line together, and he was the focal point for that leadership and just the way he worked. So to me, I was just like, man, that sounds like our kind of guy. And he said, it is our kind of guy. And that's what was so cool about that process, because Luke knows him. Yeah. And when you live with somebody for that long, and you are day in and day out working with them, you know them. You know them. So that's what was important for us.
With the HITS philosophy, where does the quarterback fit into that in terms of communication, being that face of the franchise, being the face of your voice a little bit? How does Justin Fields fit into this HITS philosophy?
Well, Justin's got high character. He loves football, and he wants to work hard, and he does work hard, and he's been a great worker since I've been here, and he's been working his tail off. So in terms of the hustle and effort, he's going to fit right into that. The intensity for the quarterback's more about mental intensity and mental focus, making sure he's operating the offense, and obviously taking care of the ball, making good decisions, good timing, and then situations. I mean, that's all quarterback play. So we're going to work him through those situations, and we just went through with every coordinator, the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and special teams guy, and it took about 10 hours to do all three groups and going over what we call those situations, and that's going to be imparted onto the quarterback, and he's going to have to be an expert at that.
When you look at Justin with your defensive coordinator hat on, what strikes you? What puts fear into your defense? What keeps you up at night? And now that you have him, what excites you on the other end?
Yeah, the one thing is his mobility, his ability to, the untimed down, where it's, hey, okay, 1, 2, throw the ball, okay, hand it off or run a boot pass or a screen. Those are all normal timed plays. But when it becomes untimed, where it's, hey, it's past the normal time, and it's now, man, he's dangerous. He's dangerous because now we want to be able to look down the field and strike people that way rather than running. And that's where that'll make him extremely dangerous.
The play after the play.
Exactly. Yep.
Along those lines, if you're looking at him and you want him to, kind of speed things up with the decision-making process. From a defensive side, the coverage is what might – like you could probably turn on the tape and be like, oh, well, this was the thing that confused him or whatever it is.
Right.
Where do you come in that conversation to help that speed-up process as the offensive coaches are addressing that?
Yeah, I mean, I know the offensive coaches will certainly have progressions for him, and what we have like 3 or 4 different progressions that we go through in the passing game. But on the defensive side, I can tell them the techniques and fundamentals or the alignments that you can see pre-snap. You can tell a lot by corners, nickel corners, by safeties, linebackers alignments, defensive alignments. So they all tell a story. So if he knows the story beforehand, before the ball snapped, then he's going to make faster decisions post-snap.
Is that something you look forward to, like testing him through your own defense? Like having that be part of his development, his plan for progress, the test that you could give him.
Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, definitely. I'm excited about it, and I'm excited about the relationship and getting to know him as a person and how he operates, just on a day-to-day basis, and get to know him. And then the football side of it's going to be exciting too, and then trying to impart some wisdom there from the defensive side.
Do you feel like he has enough weapons right now to work with? I know you guys are always going to be looking to improve the roster.
I do think he has enough, and we're always trying to improve. We're always trying to improve that. You're always trying to get better, get more. You have to do that because, you say, is that enough? Well, there's never enough. I mean, we can always add more and more and more there, but we're always looking for speed. We got to increase our speed, increase our talent level in the entire football team.
Byron Pringle seems like a guy who has that speed. When you're looking at trying to stop him,
Yes.
what would keep you up?
Yeah, we were excited about Byron Pringle. I mean, he's a special guy and a special player, and I really enjoyed our conversation, during the recruiting process, and he's going to bring a lot to the table. Number one, his work ethic, and his ability to run after the catch. I mean, he's special that way.
You've used the word worker a couple times today to describe, it's Roquan Smith or David Montgomery. Define worker, and how do you, characterize it, the need for your team for those workers to be part of your roster?
Yeah, so I always believe that your best players ought to be your best workers, and they're the example that the whole team follows. So Roquan Smith, Justin Fields, Montgomery, everybody that's considered our best players on our roster, they need to be the best workers. And the reason that is that sets culture. When I see those guys doing it, and I'm a backup linebacker, I'm the 5th linebacker, I'm the 3rd halfback, or I'm the 3rd quarterback. I look at those guys in front of me, and man, I say, geez, these guys are working. And the definition of work is to give max effort, max focus as soon as you step on the field. And that's gonna be a standard for us.
One guy I want to get your opinion on or thoughts on early is Thomas Graham, because he's how do you evaluate what you can see on tape? Because there's actually not a lot of tape. He didn't play his last year at Oregon. comes in as a late round pick. But then when you watch that Vikings game last year, like he's getting thrown in a situation and it was a crazy week where the Bears were like down like 5 DBs,
right?
And he out there making plays, but then he didn't play a whole lot even after that. So I mean, how much value can you put on a small sample size of snaps?
Well, you can see what his skill set is, what he's capable of doing, and then now we just have to see consistency and get our hands on him and let him do his thing and have him show us his skill set, and then we'll find the right role for him, and then help him along the way in his skill set. That's what a coach does. And so, like you said, there's not a lot of information there, but we like what we see.
In general, when you have this H.I.T.S philosophy or the loaf-based grading system that we're familiar with, can you tell early if a guy fits that or not? Like within 2 or 3 practices or a week of training camp, can you tell early, like, okay, we got to find someone else?
Well, you can tell early if it's a natural fit. Like you can see right away that, hey, this guy plays. He's got great wind. He can play all day. He's right there. He just needs a little bit of push and a little bit of improvement. But there'll be guys that come in that dip their toe on the outside of the boat, and they say, well, shoot, this looks like this is pretty hard. And they say, well, and we'll see those guys. And we'll say, look, you can't do that. You got to jump in. You got to jump in with both feet and go, and then max out and then put everything you got out there. And let it go. Don't hold it back. Because a person knows this, and I'll tell the players this, is that only you know if you're going max speed, right? So we all can get on a treadmill, right? We can start running. But if you're holding back a little bit, right? We've all done that because I don't want to get that tired. I do that, right? And then all of a sudden now you put it up to whatever your max speed is. Is it, these guys is, faster than fast can be, but we would be like at 8.2, 9, somewhere in there. Would be as fast as we could run because we're all slow. But, so that somebody has them. And we know that. So they have to get their max speed and push past that, and that's done here and then done in here. So we'll get them to do that and show them what that is.
The last thing I have for you is kind of a follow-up to something we were talking about this morning, which was the difference between a 3-4 and a 4-3 these days,
right,
defensively. You talked a lot about this, just the amount of sub packages that a 3-4 might have. So, if one of the advantages or benefits of a 4-3 is to simplify the amount of sub packages you have,
right,
I guess what are the benefits? What's the benefit sometimes of keeping things simple as opposed to just having a lot going on?
Yeah, I think that guys know their role and they know what they're being asked to do. And I think you could focus more on the principles that we want to establish as our foundation. I think when you have a lot of different things that are going on, offense, defense, or kicking, be it personnel or calls, the guys will focus more on calls and what to do rather than how to do it. So the how to do for us is our foundational pieces. And now the coaches can focus on that and coach that. And the players understand that's very important to us. Execution is very important to us. And I think when you limit those variables, I think you can really hone in on what your foundational pieces are.
I'm curious, just like how far ahead have you thought, like how the training camp schedule is going to lay out? Like we talked earlier about joint practices. I know you want to do that, but like just, family days and stuff at H.I.T.S. So like how much forethought have you given, like how you want to run your culture like on a day-to-day basis at H.I.T.S Hall?
Yeah, so I've given that a lot of thought, and I have a meeting schedule for my team meetings that I've gone through already, all the way through training camp, and I also have a meeting schedule for obviously offense, defense, and kicking as we go through, and I've already lined up all the training camp schedule, but it's not finalized because I don't know the schedule yet, the preseason and all that, but I can slide and move and adjust, but yeah, we'll be ready to go.
Anything else?
No.
Yeah.
Good.
All right.
Well, thank you for your time. It's pleasure having you on the podcast, and just.
Well, he's contractually bound.
Yes, we'll have to keep that. We'll have to get the specifics on that.
I have to reread that. Let me double check.
No, it's on record. It's on record.
But there he is, Matt Eberflus, head coach of the Chicago Bears. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Matt.
All right.